Hi everyone, welcome back to Math 2 Unit 6. This is lesson 6.5, completing the square. We are on activity 2, your turn. So here is the equation of a circle, x squared plus y squared minus 2x plus 4y minus 4 equals 0. Find the radius and center of the circle. Sorry, switch that. Explain or show your reasoning. So we're basically going to be rewriting this equation and then finding the center and radius of the circle. So I encourage you to pause this video and try this out for yourself and then come back to check your work or use the video as support if you get stuck. So let's start with our first step from the previous activity, right, where we added 4 to both sides. So we know negative 4 plus 4 is 0, that cancels out. And on this side, we get x squared plus y squared minus 2x plus 4y equals, and then 0 plus 4 is 4. And this just helps us get all of our variables on one side and our constant on the other side of the equation as we work towards the completing the square process. The next thing I want to think about is how can I rearrange these terms so that it's easy for me to identify, right, what is going to complete the square. This basically just means putting my terms with x together and then putting my terms with y together. And to help out a bit with understanding this visually, I'm just going to put a blank box in here to show us that we need to find some number to complete the square. Right, so if you recall in the warm-up, we were trying to figure out what number can we add to these types of expressions to make it into a perfect square trinomial. So when we think about that, we should be considering our linear coefficient. So in this case, it is negative 2. Oops. Remember that we take half of the linear coefficient, which is the same thing as saying that we're dividing the linear coefficient by 2. So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. And then remember that our second step was squaring that number. So negative 1 squared, that is negative 1 times negative 1, and then that will just give us 1. So for the x terms here in this expression, the number that will make this expression a perfect square trinomial is 1. Let's look at the expression with the y terms. So here our linear coefficient is 4. We can take 4 divided by 2, which is 2. And then if we do 2 squared, that will give us 4. So in this case, 4 is the number that's going to complete the square or make this expression a perfect square trinomial. So the next part of this, right, is rewriting this equation into a form that is useful for us, right? Because our question is asking us to find the center and radius of the circle. So if we kind of break this down into two parts, they're both written in that standard form of a quadratic equation. And we want it to end up looking like this, where it is a perfect square binomial and it's written in the factored form. All right, so I'm going to put an arrow taking us over here just to give us like a quick review of that box method for factoring. So when we've got our x squared minus 2x plus 1, right, we need to find two numbers that multiply to 1 and add up to get negative 2. So I know that 1 times 1 gives me 1, right? But they both need to combine to get negative 2. So I want to make both of these actually negative. So we know now in factored form, this expression would be written as x minus 1 times x minus 1. And we know also because x minus 1 is being multiplied by itself, we can write this as x minus 1, the whole thing squared, okay? So if we do this process again for the expression with the y terms, we've got y squared plus 4y plus 4. I want to find two numbers that multiply to 4 and also add up to 4. Well, we know that the numbers will be 2, right? So 2 times 2 is 4, 2 plus 2 is 4 over here. And there's actually one step that I had missed in this second part that I want to just call out here. And this is actually an important mistake that I think some of you might make. So I think this is a good learning moment for us. So when I added the 1 and 4 over here to the left side, right, I actually need to add those to the right side as well. So if you remember in our previous activity, right, we wanted to make sure that we balance the equation out. We're not changing the value. So even though I added 1 and 4 to the left side, I want to make sure I add them to the right side so that we're not changing the value. Okay, so now we know 4 plus 1 plus 4. I'm just going to bring that down over here again. Our final equation, we will have x minus 1 squared plus y plus 2 squared is equal to 4 plus 1 plus 4, which is 9. Okay, so this is like our standard form of our circle over here. The question is asking us to find the coordinates of the center and the radius. So if you recall in our previous activity, right, we had used our standard form of our circle, our x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And then we know our center is going to be h comma k, and the radius is r. And you all had kind of derived this equation in the previous lessons. So for our center, we've got positive 1 coming from this expression, and then the negative 2 coming from this expression over here. We know that my radius, right, is going to be r squared. If r squared is equal to 9, I know that r is going to be equal to 3. So we'll put like we'll put an arrow here. And we'll say if r squared is equal to 9, right, if some number squared is equal to 9, that number has to be 3. Okay, so we have found the center and radius of our circle here. Now, in number 2, we just need to graph this. So I'm going to go up over here to number 2, and you should be able to see this in your next slide on Desmos. So we know that our center, right, was at 1 comma negative 2, and our radius was 3. So I'm going to go to 1 comma negative 2, which is right over here. And then remember that for our radius, right, we just count 3 in every single direction to create our circle. So let's go up. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. That takes me to positive 1 comma positive 1. I'll go down 1, 2, 3. That takes me to negative 2, negative 5. Let's go 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3. 4 comma negative 2. And then 1, 2, 3. That will take me to negative 2, negative 2. So now let's just start to connect the dots a little bit here. Oops. And now we have graphed our circle, right? So we've got our center at 1 comma negative 2, and then our radius of 3, which you can check by just counting 3 in every single direction from the center. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.